Welcome to the Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. The FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine. More vaccine mandates are now on the way. Aside from the chaotic evacuation from Afghanistan, we should also consider the long-term impact of the Taliban's return to power. The Chinese Communist Party is now eager to work with the terrorist group. What are its true motives? The progressives' $3.5 trillion dream plan seems to be in jeopardy. There are more Democrat moderates in the House than you would have thought. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. 8 months after the emergency use authorization of the vaccines, the FDA on August 23rd granted full approval to Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for people 16 and older. The FDA said that the vaccine was effective in preventing COVID-19 infection, as well as preventing severe disease and hospitalization. FDA officials said they determined the benefits of the vaccine outweigh its risks, including side effects, while the agency did note there are increased risks of heart inflammation, particularly within the 7 days following the second dose. Such risk is the highest in males 12 through 17 years of age. Following FDA approval, Joe Biden called on private companies to impose vaccination requirements. New York mandated vaccines for teachers and other educators. New Jersey imposed mandates for educators and state workers, and the Pentagon mandated Pfizer shots for all service members. There has been so much focus on how the Biden administration handled the Afghan crisis. Today we want to talk about something different. We want to bring to light the threat that lies beneath the chaos. In particular, the role the Chinese Communist Party plays and is going to play in the calamity of the aftermath. After the Taliban overturned Kabul on August 15th, both the CCP and the Taliban said they look forward to a mutual friendship. When you consider how brutal the CCP is toward Uyghur Muslims and how extreme the Taliban is, you wonder how they could work together. Experts say the CCP and the Taliban are working on a marriage of convenience. Professor of Chinese Study Shrikant Kandapalli from New Delhi said that in the short term, the CCP is likely to help the Taliban overrun Afghanistan and form a stable government. The Taliban, isolated and condemned by the international community, desperately needs the CCP's help to build a country. In fact, the CCP and the Taliban are not strangers. Their relationship dates back to the 70s when Chinese military intelligence trained the Mujahideen in their fight against the Soviet Union in Xinjiang and areas in Afghanistan and Pakistan. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the CCP consolidated its relations with the terrorists. At the end of 2000, the UN Security Council proposed sanctions on the Taliban to force it to close Osama bin Laden's terrorist training camps, but the CCP abstained from the vote. Instead, it sent in its military to support the Taliban immediately after the United States began airstrikes in Afghanistan. One of those attacks left an unexploded cruise missile in bin Laden's base. An October 2001 report by The Guardian said that the CCP paid bin Laden several $1 million for access to the missile. The goal, of course, was to study advanced U.S. weapons and steal their technology. According to the Association for Asia Research in 2004, CCP intelligence agencies used some of their front companies in financial markets around the world to help Al-Qaeda raise and launder funds for their operations. Why is the CCP so keen on helping the terrorists in Afghanistan? There are several reasons. One major aspect is that the CCP has been eyeing the country's abundant mineral resources, which are worth between $1 trillion and $3 trillion. The CCP is a top player in the world of renewable energy, and minerals are critical to the production of wind turbines and batteries for electric vehicles. The regime is outsourcing and buying out mining fields for minerals to absolutely dominate the world supply chain. In 2007, China's state-owned mining company, MCC, bought the mining rights for $100 billion in Maysanak, Afghanistan, an area close to Taliban strongholds. Film director Brent Huffman said the CCP hopes to partner with the Taliban to mine at Maysanak without restrictions related to protecting the environment, human rights, and cultural heritage. Huffman directed the award-winning documentary Saving Maysanak, released in 2014. The film is about saving a 5,000-year-old Buddhist site near Kabul. The site is on a copper mine, which the CCP has long been interested in. As long as the Taliban allows Chinese companies to exploit the resources, the the CCP does not care what they do to the people or how oppressive the rule is. Why would they? The CCP has the most atrocious human rights violations. Secondly, the CCP needs a strong ally in Central Asia for its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Sinologist Frank Legberger calls the CCP and the Taliban a marriage of convenience. He said the Taliban could deliver a stable partnership if they don't engage in a protracted civil war inside Afghanistan with genocidal acts against religious minorities. As long as the CCP pays and provides all the infrastructure investments that the Taliban wants, and as long as Beijing does not obstruct the Taliban's growing trade of illicit narcotics from Afghanistan to Europe, which, by the way, aims to weaken the so-called infidels in Europe to benefit the terrorist group, the Taliban will be, quote, nice to the CCP. Well, the CCP itself has been poisoning the United States for a very long time. China is the biggest fentanyl producer and exports a deadly amount of the drug to America each year. We have previously discussed the imported opioid epidemic in detail. If you missed it, be sure to check it out. I have put the link in the description below. But what we want to say here is actually we don't know whether it was the CCP who taught the Taliban sinister chemical warfare to undermine the West. This tactic is very much in line with the means and methods described in the book Unrestricted Warfare, written by two CCP Air Force colonels in 1999. There's another reason at this point it couldn't be more obvious. The CCP regards the United States as its only rival to becoming the world's leading power. Supporting a U.S. enemy advances its own interest. The disastrous U.S. drawdown from Afghanistan handed the CCP a precious opportunity to salvage its diminishing influence on the world stage. For the longest time, the CCP was not part of the conversation on the war on terror, which an Association for Asian Research article by DJ McGuire called it a, quote, tragic mistake. The article, titled How Communist China Supports Anti-U.S. Terrorists, detailed a long history of the CCP backing various terrorist groups. To give you a few examples, starting in 2000, the now Chinese telecommunication giant Huawei supplied former Iraq President Saddam Hussein with high-tech fiberglass for his air defense facilities. On the very day the World Trade Center fell on 9/11, the CCP signed a pact of economic cooperation with the Taliban. State-run Xinhua Press later produced a video on the 9/11 attacks, glorifying the strike as a humbling blow against an arrogant nation. The CCP has also been very close to Iran, the world's largest terrorism sponsor. The two countries just entered into a 25-year cooperation agreement not long ago. In the most recent case, on July 28th, as the Taliban expanded its control over Afghanistan at lightning speed, CCP Foreign Minister Wang Yi invited senior leaders of the terrorist group to Tianjin, China. It's quite bizarre that the CCP would want to talk to the Taliban when the U.S. was pulling its presence from Afghanistan. Wang even claimed he expected the Taliban to play an important role in the country's, quote, peace, reconciliation, and reconstruction process. The CCP must have had learned firsthand how fast the group was progressing and the imminent takeover. The meeting certainly had a propaganda purpose, mainly to the Chinese, to add legitimacy to what's otherwise considered an Islamic terrorist organization. America has to recognize the role the CCP plays behind the scenes. McGuire said Communist China is fighting a Cold War against the U.S. This is why the war on terror cannot and will not be won unless America sees the CCP for what it really is, an enemy. We should all realize the road to defeat terrorism may very well not be in Kabul, Baghdad, or Tehran, but in Beijing. On Monday, 45 veteran organizations requested a virtual meeting with the president to discuss the evacuation in Afghanistan. The coalition wants to ensure there is a comprehensive plan to get all U.S. citizens and allies out, and wants to assist in every way possible. The group warns failing to evacuate everyone is not only a national security risk and damages the U.S.'s reputation and trust, it would also condemn veterans and survivors of the conflict in Afghanistan to a lifetime of moral injury. Many, including the Veteran Coalition, have urged Biden to spare no expense for the full evacuation of Americans and Afghans who supported the United States. But so far, there doesn't seem to be an organized effort beyond the Kabul International Airport. Pressure and criticism intensifies with each passing day. On the same day, the Pentagon said it may ask Biden to allow troops to stay in Afghanistan past August 31st, but the prospects of extending the stay doesn't look promising. From the Taliban side, it was a straight no. The spokesman for the terrorist group characterized August 31st as a red line and threatened there would be consequences if the U.S. chose to stay beyond that. The day before, Biden confirmed there have been talks with his administration and the military about an extension, but the hope is, quote, we will not have to extend. However, one thing is sure, the administration hasn't stopped negotiating with the Taliban. On Monday, CIA Director William Burns secretly flew to Kabul to meet with Taliban leader Mullah Baradar. It was the highest level in-person meeting between the U.S. and the Taliban since the group took over the capital. Currently, the situation in Kabul remains highly dangerous, with gates to the airport closing and opening without notice. As of this morning, the total number of evacuees by the U.S. and NATO members since August 14 is close to 59,000. It's unclear how many of those are Americans. And coming up, Nancy Pelosi may not have enough votes in the House to pass the infrastructure bill. And the USCP said that the officer who fatally shot Ashley Babbitt acted lawfully. But before we continue, I just want to stress how important it is as the viewer to help us get the truth out to as many people as possible. Please take the time to like the video and share it across all your social media. Also, double check and make sure you are still subscribed to the channel and click the bell so that you can be notified every time we post a new video. Now, I want to extend a get well soon on behalf of the Eye Opener live chat family to our friend Patty Taylor. Hopefully, Patty, you are watching and recovering. And like I said, on behalf of the Eye Opener live chat family, we all wish you a speedy recovery. Okay, let's get back to the show. Democrats' $3.5 trillion socialist dream plan may be in jeopardy in the House. For the past 2 weeks, Speaker Nancy Pelosi has been negotiating between moderates and progressives in her caucus on the infrastructure deal. But now Pelosi doesn't seem to have enough votes to pass the bill. She can only afford to lose 3 votes from her party, but 9 Democrat lawmakers have vowed to oppose the budget process, which is necessary for the Democrats to advance the second track. The moderates said the House must pass the $1 trillion bipartisan piece of the legislation before considering invoking the budget proposal. On August 21st, Pelosi released a statement directed at the 9 congressmen. She pleaded with the members to support President Biden's vision and said the caucus must move quickly to pass the budget resolution this week. This release follows news from 2 days ago that the 2 famous Democrat centrists, Senator Joe Manchin and Senator Kyrsten Sinema, were advising the members in negotiations with the White House and the Speaker. On Monday, Manchin weighed in on the stalemate. He urged the House to pass the partisan legislation first and have Biden sign on the bill before moving to the budget reconciliation. He said, with so much uncertainty in the world today, one thing is certain. We must unite and pass a critical priority of the American people, improving our nation's infrastructure. It would send a terrible message to the American people if the bipartisan bill is held hostage. Pelosi faces a difficult situation. Neither the progressives nor the moderates in her party have relented in their commitment on how they will vote on the infrastructure deal. If Pelosi takes the moderates' call, she will lose 95 votes of the progressive caucus. If she sides with the progressives, she still doesn't have enough votes to advance the budget process. Seems to be a no-win situation. The U.S. Capitol Police on Monday said the fatal shooting of Ashley Babbitt on January 6 was lawful. The officer, whose name remains concealed, will not be disciplined over the deadly use of force. The USCP explained, quote, if the doors were breached, the rioters would have immediate access to the House chambers. The actions of the officer in this case potentially saved members and staff from serious injury and possibly death from a large crowd of rioters forcing their way in. The department designated the fatal shooting as an action in the defense of human life and will not identify the officer for safety concerns. Babbitt's lawyer, Terry Roberts, hired by the family, however, claimed he does not believe the officer gave verbal warning and ambushed Babbitt by firing at her. In video clips, Babbitt was attempting to climb up on the glass door when she was fired upon. The shot was deadly. Babbitt slumped to the ground and appeared to have immediately lost consciousness. Upon hearing the conclusion, many are condemning the double standard. Apparently, the same judgment on the use of police force is not applied to all law enforcement officers. In the so-called police reform movement, police officers are restrained from the use of deadly force or other, quote, excessive force during violent BLM riots around the country. The investigation done by the USCP took so long with little transparency. At least for Babbitt and her family, they deserve a much better answer. And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me in the Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, Parler, and Getter. Now don't forget, please sign up to the email list so we can stay in touch. I'd like to thank you all, and I'll see you next time.